hiring and building $1 million team across LatAm.
Thank you, Jess. I'm Oliver de Bono, the COO at Condor Gaming, and I'm here with SiGMA Americans to discuss hiring and building $1 million team across LatAm. I have some industry veterans with me here in the studio today, Thomas, Cris, and Florencia, here to discuss what makes LatAm unique when it comes to hiring and building the right teams for your company's growth. Now, we know in recent years LatAm has become a very big focus, both locally and internationally. You have European and North American operators who are looking to create teams focused on this market. But it's not just the operators. There's the B2Bs, there's the ancillaries. So there is a huge demand for talent in LatAm. But the first question it begs is, does the talent exist? So Thomas, I want to start with you on this one. Looking at a recruitment background, you probably understand very well how many good, let's say, persons exist within this market that are available to, let's say, support the growth of businesses. So would you say that the LatAm market has a strong presence of talent that can help growth within the gaming sector?
Thank you, Oliver. Really appreciate the question. Very pertinent question, I must say. I would say yes, from a willingness point of view. However, there's also going to be a certain degree of willingness from the operators to not only train, but actually print their culture and the whole iGaming culture, which is a whole different segment altogether. So if we look at it from a willingness perspective, yes, I think there's plenty of talent, and I'm referring specifically to Brazil right now, because yes, when we say LatAm, when we say Latin America, we're talking about a massive continent with very different countries in there. So we got to be very mindful of those differences as well. So if I can pinpoint Brazil to be able to answer your question a bit more precisely, I would say yes, there is plenty of talent, but the operators must also be aware that there's going to be a certain degree of work in training and preparing the specific talent for sure.
Okay, that's very interesting. And you mentioned Brazil, which is one of the interesting markets. Many operators are initially looking at that, let's say, as the stepping stone into the market. Now, we saw years ago that a number of operators did establish teams. And there was a little bit of the irony that, okay, Brazil speaks Portuguese, so I can hire someone in Europe who's a Portuguese speaker. And this is what I think a lot of operators may have done wrong in the past, because we have, through this entire conference, realized that localization is the biggest key to the Latin American market. It is all about localization. Whether it's your team, your support, your product, your marketing, everything needs to be localized. So when we talk about localization, I think the people are the most important factor. So talking about this, there are major differences. So talking about Brazil, we have this talent that has existed, but do you think that, let's say, in certain areas of the business, that people do need to be local to be able to thrive within the market? Thomas, just a little bit of elaboration. What, like, language differences and personalities, they do differ greatly in LatAm. So would you say that you would need, let's say, local staff to develop the strongest possible team?
Yes, no, absolutely. I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think we need to be very humble in our approach. However, it is very correct to say, Oliver, that this is a mistake to approach Brazil. If an operator is serious about Brazil as a market, they would consider as well the importance in localizing and regionalizing, we can even use the word, all aspects, all sectors, all departments of that specific market. Otherwise, I mean, you're not able to get the results that you're willing to get. So from a culture perspective, there's differences. From an approach perspective, Brazilians are much more relational. We expect that interaction on a full-time basis almost. I remember getting some feedback from a call center, from an iGaming call center that I used to manage, and there were some Portuguese people from Portugal there, and they were saying, I don't know why the Brazilian player keep on coming back with the very same questions over and over again. But guess what? That's in our nature. We're going to go back to the call center asking how to deposit.
Yeah, we lost you a bit there, but I can get it. They didn't understand the answer, which is the reality when you're looking at such localized regions. But let's take it up a notch. Cris, I want to move over to you for a second and just understand a little bit. Looking at, for example, more management persons or highly experienced marketeers and so on. It is hard to find because the markets are relatively new. So just a quick question. I mean, from your opinion, Cris, would you say how many good marketeers exist? And I'm not asking you for a number, but finding them is always a struggle. Would you go in the direction of, one for each country because you need to localize? So in your experience, what has been the biggest difficulty in localization for these highly skilled persons?
Well, the key word, Thomas just said it, you need to be humbled, because sometimes when you hire people from abroad, that they already mastered some markets, they think they have the keys for everything. But they need to be aware that Latin America has very special needs. When it comes to that, in the past we've had some experiences with previous positions where they didn't fulfill the needs that we had. So yes, it's difficult to find them, and also it's difficult to make them understand that there's the need to reprogram themselves and learn again from a completely new market.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Because when it is an evolving market, you're always going to have the age-old question, which I myself have come across. Do you invest in building up the person, or do you invest in the person who's already built up? So this is, let's say, the classical question. Florencia, I want to move over to you a little bit, and obviously looking at your experience as a LatAm country manager, what have you seen as the hardest difficulty in let's say developing staff, not just finding them?
Well, it's a very interesting question, because I think it's a combination of everything. You need to hire people who has some skills, and also you need to invest time to training. And the key is to keep them, because you train someone and then he is bored, he doesn't like gambling, and he wants to move to other industry, or someone else took it. And this is something that you need to really, if you are a good manager, you need to keep your team motivated. You need to train it every time. And something that that's happened for me in the very beginning. I've been in the industry for many years, and in the very beginning, like I'm talking 12 years ago, was so difficult to have people who can manage the whole LatAm. And that is also something that is very difficult, because you may be a master in Brazil, but then you are horrible in Mexico. Yeah. Or the people speak different. I'm from Uruguay, and we have, I must say, like a neutral Spanish, where everybody can understand. And it's kind of people likes how we speak and understand each other. But also, this is very important. We are in the border for Brazil, and a lot of Uruguayans speak Portuguese, a very good one, like almost native. And I've been in one of the biggest companies in Brazil, and we have all our team was speaking both, actually 3 languages: English, Spanish, and Portuguese from Brazil. And that helped us to manage the whole region. But sometimes when you move up, like Mexico, Colombia, Costa Rica, they have different accents, cultures, and as Thomas said, sometimes they don't know like payment options, what is the difficulties. And for me, it's you train people, you make capable to understand, but the key
Hi, Florencia, I think we might have lost you. Can you hear me? Oh, there you are.
You need to have someone from Mexico.
Yeah. Well, that's it. So
and even it's the same in Colombia, and like you can have a whole team in I don't know, based in Uruguay, in Argentina, wherever you want, but you need to have localized people who can help you to understand what is happening.
So yeah, again, we go back to localization is the key. And you coined on something quite interesting, because we have seen this in Europe, especially here in Malta, which is quite interesting because the gaming industry did flourish very, very well on the island. However, after a number of years, when many people were trained up, you started to get these huge amounts of movement between the companies. So people were getting headhunted. You spend 1 or sometimes 6 months, sometimes 1 year, sometimes 2 years investing in your people. And then you lose them because somebody decides to, let's say, offer them a higher salary, probably sometimes better career prospects, because you may be limited for whatever reason because this person started as a trainee. But Thomas, I want to switch back over to you and maybe go into, let's say, the initial assessment process. I mean, looking at the LatAm market, it is so diverse. You have to localize every market, so we know there is no one person that understands LatAm. It is a case of the company targeting Mexico or Brazil and then building a team relating to those industries. But what would you say are the key factors when hiring? Would you say it's hire the talent who has the experience, or again build into the people who may be interested in the sector? Your opinion there?
Thank you, Oliver. Thank you. And I 100% agree with what Cris and Florencia have said on their specific questions. Now, one thing we need to establish here and be very and stress it very strongly is that there is no such thing as LatAm markets. LatAm is a continent. Latin America is a continent with many countries inside. Even if you look at those countries specifically, you're going to have different nuances, cultural nuances, behavior nuances. You're going to have economical differences in each of these countries themselves. So we just need to establish here that having a strategy for LatAm means much more than saying that we have a strategy for LatAm as a market. Now, going back to your question there, Oliver, what I think it's really important, even before deciding on how to breaking down the profile of people that you're looking for, is the leadership style of your company. There is something like, there's a lot of material online about transactional and transformational leadership. And this is a very important context that we need to take in considerations. I would be very careful, but I still want to make this statement. Most of Latin American people will not do well with the transactional leadership style. What does that mean? A transactional leadership style is a transaction. You do this, you get that. Simply put. However, in a transformational leadership style, the leader is constantly motivating, pushing, encouraging, going the extra mile in order to get the team, get the synergy for the team. So this is very much needed, and that's where as well it is important to have someone from the countries, and that's where I agree with Florencia as well, managing the specific resources. I think, Oliver, that's a recipe for success, even more than determining if the workforce, if the skill is in the country or not, because all the other skill set, that's trainable. Teaching someone about iGaming is trainable. Yes, a lot of Brazilians don't know, and they won't be able to service an iGaming client as successfully as someone in Spain or someone in Germany. However, that's trainable. That skill comes with time. So if we have the right leadership set on place, leadership skills, I think it's already a very good beginning.
Fantastic. And you actually brought something up very interesting, leadership skills. Cris, I want to shift over to you for a second now. We know that hiring a team is only the first step. It's keeping a team that counts. And, we do know that, cultural differences will play a factor on that. But every country or every region does have preferences that, let's say, motivate staff and do retain staff, which is a major issue across the entire gaming industry. So speaking about LatAm in particular, maybe we can even pick up a couple of, let's say, particular countries. But are there any particular requirements for managing and maintaining a team in LatAm? I'm just going to throw this out here. For example, we know in more Western states, in the US, in the UK, Malta may be included, you do have a huge emphasis on career prospects and growth, but leadership is slowly evolving. You have certain trends coming out of Scandinavia as well. And then if you look at the States, you've got the whole Google, Facebook style offices, which have come into the gaming industry. But LatAm specifically, Cris, I'd like to see or to understand if there are any particular areas that are unique to LatAm.
Yes, sure. When it comes to leadership and trying to retain your staff, I strongly advise that you recognize the fact that people is not working only for money anymore. People needs to be challenged. They want to make a difference, and you need to provide the proper environment for that. When it comes to leadership, well, that's a tough question. You need to make sure that your people and your staff is sure that you're making the right decisions and that you will provide them the environment to grow. They will deliver as long as you have a proper plan for that.
Okay, it's interesting. So again, one of the key factors for the LatAm market is it is growth and leadership with guidance, which is quite unique because we are looking at this market evolving very quick. And I think the faster this market grows, the more operators, B2Bs and ancillaries are going to start feeling that pinch of good people will get taken away. Florencia, we're running out of time, but I do want to shift over to you for a little bit and talk about, let's say, training and team building. Thomas mentioned earlier that you need to localize. So would you say to build the strongest team, you can have, for example, a central hub in Uruguay, but then you need the individual. How easy is it, however, for people to move around Latin America? Because is it a case that you need to have a team in each country, or can you shift them to a centralized office? What are your thoughts on that?
It's very difficult to move people. And something that is very important here is that you need to, and companies are not so big sometimes. And what you need is you need to share teams. For example, you need to talk with a localized team in London who give you some information to you, and you need to translate it. And the key here is you need to have someone who does content very well, who can translate in that way that every Brazilian or every Spanish can understand. And you have people in Malta who can do support. It's like, why? But you have in Malta Brazilian people, you have people from Mexico, you have a lot of people there. And then the globalization is so important. In this case, to be a really good leader, you need to have that skill. You can manage time zones, you can manage people in different countries, and I don't think that you need to have an office in any country in LATAM. You can work from home, especially now with the COVID. We prove that working in that thing, it's not that bad. And team building, well, let's do one per year. Let's have a meeting in one place, maybe around one conference or whatever, and work together for 1 week. And this is essential. Talk to the people in the other office. I have time to talk with people in Curacao, people in Malta, people in Portugal. You need to have the time and just to make relationship between them. Your team, doesn't matter where they're based, they need to be a team and collaborate each other. Even the time zone, sometimes you speak with someone, you say, oh my God, sorry, it's 8 in your country. No worry, Florencia, it's fine. These things happen. But that is the key, just to have a strong relationship between them.
Yeah, so we're seeing a pattern emerge here. So we can see the fact that, LATAM does require localization. It does require a lot of attention and leadership skills. And you said something very interesting earlier, that the pandemic situation did kind of open a door for businesses to say, wait a minute, we don't need to centralize, the entire operation in an office in Malta, which has changed and opened a lot of opportunity for businesses to say, okay, we can have 3 people working from home in Brazil, 2 people working from home in Uruguay, and so on and so forth, which is, I think, one of the very interesting factors to allow for better localization. You also touched on something I found really interesting. You said that content comes from an office in Malta and then is told to translate. But I think when you are looking at localization and you want to have the best people, I think it has to be a case of allow them to also create the content because they know their culture and their market. So building that team in LatAm, it sounds like it does need nourishing and it does need leadership, which are, again, the key fundamentals to building any team. Unfortunately, we are running out of time today, but I just want to thank everyone for being here. Before we close off, Thomas, I just want you to jump in there. What would you say, the key factors, couple of words on building the team in LatAm? Am I right to say it's leadership? Is there anything I've missed? Anything that you can add?
I think the key... Okay, go ahead, Thomas, please.
Yeah, Thomas, and then I'll pass on to you, Chris.
Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah. So, I think the operators, my fellow colleagues and operators need, if you have a plan for a market, for a Latin American market, just make sure that you can almost like tailor make it as much as possible. And I say this again with all, as humbly as I can, because I mean, I want for businesses to succeed. I want for the markets to develop and to grow in maturity. However, if we keep on seeing, and again, I say this with all due respect, if we keep on seeing European operators coming into the markets, thinking it's one big thing, LatAm is one big market, not necessarily succeeding, and then blaming the market is not necessarily the right way to go. So I would say, if a business is serious about Latin America, make sure you have a plan, a marketing plan, a resource plan, a people plan, a digital affiliation plan. Just have a plan, just like you would do for Germany, for France, for Spain. Every country in LatAm is a specific market, so just have that in mind.
Exactly. Just because they speak the same language doesn't make it the same country. Chris, closing words.
Yes, for me the key to hiring is having a balance between the people that you hire from abroad and the locals. If you find people abroad that is willing to share their knowledge, then you will have the people, locals, ready to learn. That's the key for me.
Fantastic. Look, guys, thank you very much all for your time. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for. I'd love to continue. It's been great having you on SiGMA Americas, and we hope to speak to you guys again very soon. Thanks, guys. Back to you, Jess.